Welcome to the King of the Court podcast with Ben Riggs and Ben Staten.
You remember earlier in the year when we did the OKC Dallas sort of comparison, how we almost went like position by position?
Yes.
Let's do it again.
All right. So Luka versus Shai. What are you gonna? Who do you got?
Well, I mean, so thus far this year, I think we would all say, based on his current level of play, like taken as a body of work in this season, that it's a subpar Luka year.
Yes.
A subpar Luka year is 29, 8, and 8.
Yeah.
And over the last two games, like I said earlier, since he's returned from that wrist injury, you've seen Luka sort of return to form. And return to form means 37, 12, and 4, 36, 7, and 13. And then shooting the three better. Like my thing with the Luka versus Shai thing, any team in the NBA would be lucky to have either one of them.
Yes.
I'm not
100%.
throwing shade at Shai. Shai is an outstanding, like maybe the best pure scorer in the game right now. But
Yes.
that's sort of the issue to me, is he might be the best pure scorer in the game. Luka's not far behind him. But when it comes to playmaking and what they do to a defense, there's no comparing the two. Luka's on another planet with that. And I mean, I absolutely give the edge to Dallas in the comp between Luka and Shai. What do you think?
Yeah, I think I would definitely lean Luka. I think especially in a playoff environment, I think his physicality and his ability to score against any type of defense separates him a little bit from Shai, can become very reliant on just his mid-range jump shot. Like that just like he hits it. He hits it. Be very clear.
Oh, it's going in. It's going in.
It's going in, but like you saw that against Dallas last year, that was the weapon. That was the one weapon they could go back to over and over again, and that's just it's there's a limited effect. It just makes your offense kind of predictable. And so I would definitely lean Luka. At best, it's just it's a wash. But I would if you had to ask me who would I want to start a team with right now, I'm going with Luka.
Well, I mean, I go back to sort of like the way I would almost parse that out is sort of the with Shai, it's what I was saying earlier. Like Shai's going to get to his spots and knock down his shots. He's going to have 30, 32, 33 points. Like that's going to happen. Really good defense can maybe make that a little less efficient.
Yes.
But as a team, my approach to Shai is going to be I'm putting my best perimeter defender on him.
Yes.
And I'm going to scheme to take everyone else away. The
100%.
problem with taking that approach to Luka is, do you remember the 73-point game Luka had against Atlanta?
Yeah. No, I remember vividly.
Yeah, like that's a couple of things there. That's part of the reason why I say, like, I don't know that Shai is a better pure scorer than Luka. Because if you take that approach with Luka can absolutely detonate on you. Where, Shai's never had, like, I think Shai's career high is 45 points or something like that. But even beyond this, the reason I bring up the 73-point game against Atlanta is not because he scored 73. It's because the Quinn Snyder press conference after. Do you remember this? Where they asked Quinn Snyder, well, why didn't you do this? He was like, we did. And they were like, well, why didn't you do this? He was like, we didn't. And he finally got exasperated with all this. And he says, do you think Luka Doncic cares if you make him go left? Do you think he cares if you make him go right? Do you think he cares if you force him to shoot the mid-range, throw the lob, do the step back? Do you think he cares if you're forcing him to swing it out to the corner? He doesn't care what you make him do. He can do all of it, and he can do it at an elite level. That, to me, is the difference, is that it doesn't matter what you do. Luka... I think the only other player in the league that's like this is Jokic. They problem solve in real time and solve the problem at an elite level. And I think that's where the comparison between Shai and Luka breaks down.
Yes. If we're analyzing pure scoring as the ability to just have a 30-point quarter at will, if you're just in rhythm and everything's working, then Luka, the only player in the NBA actually at this point who can match that with Luka is probably Jokic. And Jokic doesn't do that as much because Jokic is not score first. Jokic is create for teammates first. But we've seen this year when he's like, fine, I guess I have to like go. I have to start bringing bringing the offense first. That he can do that as well. And Shai is much more within the rhythm of the offense. But I think the when people talk about this, they make this a Shai versus Luka debate, and I think that the rest of the roster is also revealing because there's a lot of talk about the Thunder being the deepest team in the West, but
I don't buy it.
I don't buy it because you just look at the next one, shooting guard, where you got Jalen Williams versus Kawhi.
Kyrie.
Kawhi, Kyrie versus Kyrie. I think that Williams has had a good year. I believe he's averaging 22 points, 38% shooting from three, 50 plus from the field, 51 from the field. He brings, he's a very well-rounded player. He's at 5 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 steals on defense. The Thunder as a team they swarm and they swipe at the ball very effectively. Quite honestly, they do that. That is their entire defensive strategy, was try to basically strip the ball, and they are really good at not committing fouls. So you have to give a lot of props to how well drilled they are. He's also played center at times this year in some goofy lineups that they tried.
Yeah, when Hartenstein was out,
Harden,
sort of necessitated it.
And he's a fantastic player, but Kyrie's still a better player to me.
Kyrie's averaging 24, 5, and 5 on 49% from the floor, but 45% from 3.
Yes.
And one of the things you said just then, I think, because here, I think that OKC is a really good team. The reason I have some degree of confidence that they won't defeat the Dallas Mavericks in the NBA Cup, I have less confidence about that than I do in a playoff series, because in a single game, a team can get hot from 3
anything
and anything can happen. Yeah. But the reason I have confidence about the Dallas Mavericks just being a better overall team, as we go through position by position, I think that kind of starts to reveal itself. But in addition to that, you said it. What do they do very well as a defense? They swarm, and they do what for the ball?
They swipe at it. They strip it. They try to strip it. That's their entire.
Let me ask you this: if you're going up against a really good ball handler, what's the most dangerous thing you can do?
Oh, try to swipe at it. But yeah, make your
Luka and Kyrie on ball are basically baiting you to do that. And one of the other things that, just to quickly harken back to the advantage Luka provides you, particularly against OKC, Lou Dort causes so many problems for offensive players on the perimeter because of his center of gravity and how bulky he is. Luka is one of the few on-ball guards in the NBA that has the strength advantage in that matchup.
That's actually, see, the discussion about this, the Thunder can miss the point sometimes. They can be small, but their guards are really strong. Like Shai's the
Jalen Williams,
Williams, and he plays very physically. Dort plays really physically. Caruso plays physically. Shai plays physically. He also the refs give him a ton of leeway just to do wild shit. To be quite honest, just go on YouTube and watch the clips of him. I
saw him. He's the only player I've ever seen on a fadeaway jump shot put his foot on the hip of the person and extend his leg to create space and not get a call.
Yeah, it's the most blatant offensive foul shit you'll ever see. And the Mavs are, Kyrie with his ability just to break people off the dribble. He's played against physical guards his entire career. He's very well positioned to do that. He excels in that type of defense historically because he can also just shoot. He's, his 3-point shooting is so good. Luka wants to play that way. He's very happy, getting into a very physical matchup. He's also taller. Luka has both the strength and the size, and the vision to exploit the size differential, the height differential. They have really good rim running threats that can which is an antidote to a swarming defense. If everyone swarms on you, that usually means that there's some place that's open. Oftentimes, it's someone that can back cut to the rim. It's someone it's an open 3-point shot. They just by the nature of their roster match up well against what the Thunder are trying to do. And I think that gets, accentuated as you go down the roster. You see, um, like when you got Najee Marshall, basically, he's going up against, the Thunder have sort of been rotating players in and out, but like their mainstay basically at 3 this year has been Isaiah Joe or Aaron Wiggins. And like neither one of those are big enough to really hang with a PJ Washington, or Najee Marshall. Like that like they just they're just smaller players. Like PJ Washington can like put these guys in the paint and sort of use
Oh,
them.
and he will do that. Like
Yeah,
he's going to post them. Yeah.
Marshall's the same thing. Those are both also two very physical players that are also going to sort of relish the physical battle. And I think that if you start going to the backup guard lineup, Casey Wallace is also really good, but Quentin Grimes is a very serviceable back. Quentin Grimes and Spencer Dinwiddie, they can give you minutes. They can hold water against them. Neither one of those are players that is going to get frazzled by a swarming defense.
I think Casey Wallace is a really good defensive player. He may even have an advantage over Quentin Grimes as a defender, although Quentin Grimes is a very good defender. I don't think Casey Wallace is capable of providing you with what Quentin Grimes is capable of providing you on the offensive end, though.
Not this year. He's been very poor from 3 this year, Wallace.
And
And it's part of it, like we've talked about, but it's part of a general decline. That they had an outlier shooting year last year. That was part of what we're saying. Like there's their main players, like Williams is still shooting well, but their secondary pieces, all their like across the board, we've seen a decline. And I think especially without Chet Holmgren, I think what Hartenstein is going to be able to hold his own in the matchup, but he's no match for Lively and Gafford combined. The production is like the Mavs are going to get more production from that spot.
Just to put that in perspective. So, like, I forget what you said. Hartenstein was averaging. It was something like 13 and 13 or 14 and 13 or something like that. I mean, they're good
12,
numbers.
yeah. 13 and 12, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'd ventured to guess that, I think that with him and Lively and Gafford, like if you were comparing him to one of those guys individually, I think you could say like, maybe Hartenstein's a little bit better. Maybe it's a push. Maybe it's just sort of context dependent. What team are you putting them on, and what are you expecting of them? Hartenstein is certainly a better fit in OKC than either one of those guys would be. And I think you could, say that their rim running makes them a better fit in Dallas than Hartenstein would be there. But the problem is that it's sort of pointless to compare Hartenstein to one of them individually because you have to compare him to the sort of twin-headed monster. And together, Gafford and Lively are averaging about 23 points a game and 14 rebounds.
Yes. No, yeah. It's and we extend it to like shot blocks where you're looking at like almost three block shots a game, basically 2 steals. It's the Mavs when you look at them individually at their starter and back up, the numbers don't look impressive, but as a unit, as a two-headed platoon, that's where they thrive. And the other thing is they don't get tired because they both play 24 minutes a game basically, so you get peak effort from both of them. So I just think that look, anything can happen in one game.
100%.
Like I'm not saying if this were a betting podcast, I would absolutely not advise you to bet on either of this game because, especially the way the Thunder play, if they just get hot from 3 for one game and the Mavs start slow, it could just be over before it starts. But the dynamics, and maybe this will change once Holmgren comes back. I think that that we have to see how that full unit Thunder looks. But right now, the dynamics that caused the Thunder to lose that series against the Mavs last year, which should have been a 4-1 win for the Mavs, but they lost focus and sort of choked up Game 5. Was ended up being 4-2. Those dynamics have not changed.
No, I agree. In fact, well, they have changed. They have changed. I just think that the balance tilts more towards Dallas with the addition of Najee Marshall and Quentin Grimes.
Yeah, and it's less so when you get these conversations. OKC is like, how dare you say this? We're a more talented team overall than the Mavs. That's besides the point. This is a matchup specific thing right here. The Mavs are a team that is built to be able to withstand the specific type of defensive pressure that the OKC Thunder play with, which is swarming defense, small guys who are really aggressive, hyper physical small guys. The Mavs are very comfortable 1 through 5 dealing with that. And, the other thing is they have the shooters. They have a secondary scorer who is as good, if not better, of like creating his own shot for himself in Kyrie. Like, you get the ball out of Luka's hand, congratulations. You have Kyrie now doing that.
Yeah. You don't get to swarm. Like, when you go back and you look at the way the Thunder handled Jokic, where they just swarm him. Yeah. I mean, like, obviously I'm not saying that Gafford or Lively are anywhere near the level of Nikola Jokic. That's not the point before I even say what I'm about to say. But there is a difference in that those two guys there's nothing about their game that is stationary. They're not just standing there with the ball. Jokic will get a post position and stand there with the ball and look for where he can pick you apart. And that swarming defense can, if not frustrate him, at least force him to get the ball out of his hands before he has the opportunity to pick you apart. That's not going to happen with Gafford or Lively because they're not going to have the ball in their hands in that way. They're going to have, like, you might see them catch the ball at the free throw line, but it's going to be one dribble dunk. It's going to be one dribble pass. And, the final point I'll make about this matchup is, let's say, and another reason why I favor Dallas in this game is, let's say we have ourselves a close game. The problem for me for OKC is who on these two teams in a close winner-take-all game, inside 2 minutes, are you most excited about seeing with the ball in their hands?
Oh, Luka.
Yeah, the guy lives for the moment. Like, Luka's the kind of guy who could. I mean, just go back to the Minnesota game at the beginning of the season.
He's the most exciting player in the league in that moment. Point blank.
Yeah, I mean, you go back to that early game against the Timberwolves this year, which had kind of, like, strangely for an early season game, it had kind of like some playoff level intensity to it, because of how things went in the Western Conference Finals last year. But you look at that game, I remember texting you, like, I mean, Luka's playing okay in the first half or whatever. Like, he's clearly rusty, blah, blah, blah. Like, and then suddenly that moment came in the fourth quarter. He's the dude who just pulls up from 35 feet and just drains it. Like, no hesitation, and knocks down the shot. Like, so in that moment, I much prefer Luka. And when you start looking at role players, a la PJ Washington catching a ball in the corner and knocking down a three in last year's playoff run, the team, I think, who has the guy who's most capable of putting his teammates in that position where they're looking at open corner shots and close moments is Luka. And then finally, if there's one guy on either of these rosters who, if he just gets hot from three, it is really difficult to deal with, it's the guy we haven't even mentioned his name the entire time we've been talking about this. It's Klay.
Yeah.
Like, Klay Thompson, if he gets hot, I mean, Golden State was one of those games where he just got hot and, he starts knocking down shots. So I think that I agree with you. I don't expect a blowout. I expect it to be a close game. I think Oklahoma City is a good team. I just think that Dallas matches up with them very well, and they have a slight advantage. But this is a game. It's a single game, and in a single game, anything can happen.
Yep, I agree with that.